Hi, I'm Dan Costa, Chief Content Officer at Worth Media Group, and I am here at the Milken Global Conference. My guest for the moment is Dan Buettner. He is a best-selling author, a National Geographic explorer, and the founder of Blue Zones. Dan, thanks so much for, looks like you just got off the trail and joined us here at the conference.
It's a delight to be here, and it's a delight to be here with another Dan, by the way.
Dans are the best.
They are. They've done studies.
So tell me I think most people are familiar with the concept of Blue Zones, but maybe just encapsulate it so anybody that doesn't know can sort of get their sea legs under them.
Well, the idea, about 20% of how long you live is dictated by your genes. Another 80% is something else. So to get at that, with National Geographic, we found 5 areas in the world where people live statistically longest, and then we spend about 8 years finding the common denominators, or the correlates. And we found 9 of them, of the things that drive longevity no matter where you go. The 5 blue zones, incidentally: longest lived women, Okinawa, Japan; longest lived men, Sardinia, Italy; island in Greece called Icaria, where there's virtually no dementia. In the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica, you have a population that lives about 8 years longer than we do in America, spending about 1/15 the amount we do on healthcare. And then among the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California, a population of Americans that live 7 years longer than the average. So those are our blue zones.
Obviously, these are outliers that you've identified and that you're studying. I would assume that in each of those places, people exercise, they eat properly, and they have a sense of community. Are there any other sort of things that you found that sort of factor into those factors?
So, when you think about it, exercise has been an unmitigated failure, a public health failure in the United States. We've been pushing it for about 80 years, and still only a quarter of Americans get only even 20 minutes of physical activity. So exercise, we ain't exercising. People in blue zones live in places where every time they go to work or a friend's house or out to eat, it occasions a walk. They still have gardens, and their houses aren't full of the mechanized conveniences that have engineered physical activity out of our lives. So kind of the idea is they're in constant low intensity physical activity, mostly because of unconscious prompts, not conscious ones. And that's the big idea.
So how do you replicate? It seems like a way of life more than a prescription or a treatment, or it seems like your entire existence needs to be structured differently than the modern life is today.
Again, directionally correct. It's not a way of life. It all boils down to this. They live in environments where their unconscious behavior is slightly better every day for decades. That's the big idea. You know, most sort of longevity experts, they have their pet intervention, rapamycin, metformin, plasma exchange. And those things may or may not work. We don't have any proof that they work. But I can tell you, for all of them, they'll all fail within about 2 years. If you get 100 people starting rapamycin or metformin today, you're going to have 3% in 2 years. That's kind of the recidivism
in terms
curve.
of adoption.
Yeah, and adherence to it. So people start these ideas with lots of zeal. They come to the Milken Conference, or they read about it in Worth magazine, and they say, "Well, I'm going to do that."
We have written
but
about
it. Then they run out of gas. If you really want to live longer, you have to think about things that you're going to do for decades. And the only things that we seem to do for decades are the things that come unconscious. It's not a conscious lifestyle decision, or it's not a program we're going to get on. It's how we set up our homes, our workplaces, our cities, and to a certain extent our social networks. That's what makes the difference over the long run.
Let's assume that we have the ability to sort of set that unconscious chain of positive events in motion, whether it's the individual, whether it's the company, whether it's a city government. Like, what steps can be taken to sort of set these things going down the right path?
Well, you look at each individual environment. So a city environment. Every city council has the power to change ordinances and municipal laws to favor healthy food over junk food and junk food marketing, to favor the pedestrian over the motorist, to favor the non-smoker over the smoker. So the biggest bang for the buck is to go through, and this is what Blue Zones, our projects, do, to go through city council, have a consensus process wherein we introduce a number of optional policies that are going to favor the healthy choice and assess each one of them for feasibility and effectiveness in that city. And often, they're no-brainers. And once you get the public sector and private sector agreeing to, well, this is something we can do. For example, billboard advertising. If you live in a neighborhood with billboard advertising and next door there's a demographically identical neighborhood with no billboard advertising, that neighborhood has about 15% lower BMI with simply no billboard advertising.
That's a testament to how effective those billboards are.
Yeah.
In general, the billboards are for things that are not good for you.
That's right. They're selling us KFC and Coke and beer or whatever. They're not selling us beans and broccoli. So I'm not going to go into a town and try to convince everybody to eat beans and broccoli, but I'm going to go show the data to city council and suggest that, maybe the vast majority of people aren't going to miss those billboards if you flip the ordinance to no billboard advertising. Now, there might be a business rationale to have them there that is insurmountable. I'm not going to try to surmount it. Instead, I'll go on to the next thing on the list. So,
what about the role of the private sector in businesses? I mean, certainly a lot of companies claim that they have their employees' best interests at heart. Do they have a role to play in sort of creating these positive outcomes as well?
Employer has a lot of power to create an environment where his or her employees are going to make better decisions. For example, how they get to work. You can either make it really easy for people to park, or you can make it easier for people to take public transportation. And that one decision alone could probably mean a doubling of the amount of physical activity of your employee. I ran a company, and we were downtown Minneapolis. We didn't have our own parking lot, but we had been reimbursing for parking. I flipped it, so I didn't reimburse for parking anymore. If you wanted to drive, you paid your own. If you wanted to take a bus, however, I would pay for that. And if you wanted to bike or walk to work, I would also pay you for that. And it turns out that that was much less expensive than buying gym memberships. And I could engineer in 4,000 or 5,000 steps into my employee's day without them really even thinking about it, by just kind of thinking about incentives.
No, that's a great example. You just got back from Spain. You're going to be here at the conference for a couple of days. Is there anyone you're really looking forward to meeting? Any conversations you're really looking forward to having?
I wanted to meet the head of content for Worth magazine.
You have succeeded.
I'm done. I can go home now.
Go home now. Dan, thank you so much for coming and giving us some time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Nice to meet you, Dan.
Thank you. I'm Dan Costa. This has been Worth Media, and you can find more videos like this on YouTube.